Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is check. And this video is actually a bit of a do-over because I have made a video about check, but some of my wonderful colleagues and their students have said the audio is just not working well on that video. So I'm going to try it again and be a little more confident that all of you watching can actually hear my voice. So let's take a moment to review some of the definitions or the ways that we use the verb check. The first way you might hear it used is to mean to examine something to determine its accuracy, its quality, or the condition, or maybe to find or detect something else. So, lots of parts to this first definition. You might think of an activity you've done in class, right? You maybe do an exercise, do some problems, and then you check them, right? Do you have the correct answers? Is it accurate, right? Check is something you might be doing at work, or maybe you have a supervisor that checks your work to see, is it of a good quality? Is your work in a good condition? Okay. There are other times that we are trying to detect the presence of something. So maybe you're baking something. Good example there, right? You want to check the oven, right? So see how it's doing. That would kind of fit that last part of the first definition. A second way you'll hear check used is to mean to leave your baggage with the airline company so it can be transported. If you're doing any traveling, this might be an action you choose to do. You usually have to pay extra in order to check a bag, right? So when you enter the airport, usually you would go speak with someone, talk or use a kiosk now, right? To print a little tag, and you're going to leave your bag kind of right near the entrance, right? And a worker will take it, load it onto the plane, and then you will go to the baggage claim to pick it up. A third way you'll hear check used is to mean to mark or click on a box in order to select a particular option or to select something on a form. This is an action we do pretty regularly as we are online more and more and completing more forms online. So just kind of that idea. Some people will use a check mark, right? That shape. Sometimes they'll use just an X. All of those things will work in order that to indicate you're selecting a particular option. You should know that check is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing to form checking. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, check, ends in an unvoiced K sound. This means that our ed ending is going to make a T sound. It should sound like this: checked, checked. Now, the verb check actually has a number of phrasal verbs that fit with it. So we're going to focus on looking at those different meanings, and I'll review a few verb tenses as we go along. The first phrasal verb you might encounter is to check in or check into. Both of these are going to have similar meanings. You are registering once you arrive somewhere. An example of this might be, we should check in a few hours before our flight. Right? So again, you're registering, right? I plan to be there. I plan to be on the plane. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to check off. This might mean that you are marking something as completed. An example of this: she checked off the students' names as they arrived. Maybe you've seen this, your teachers do this before, if they have kind of a list of students' names, right? And they're marking who is present. And I should note, checked off is an example of the simple past tense. And in the first sentence, should check off, that's a modal giving advice. Okay. Another phrasal verb to talk about is to check on. We use this to talk about making sure that someone or something is on okay. Here's another example sentence. I should check on the baby now. Right? This is something parents do quite frequently. This is another modal giving advice. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to check out. This phrasal verb can have a number of different meanings. One you might encounter regularly as you shop or go into stores, and that would be to pay for items before you leave. Right? An example of this: you can check out at that register. This might be a sentence you hear a store employee kind of directing you. They're also using a modal here. This modal, I would say, is connected more to ability, right? Telling someone they're able to pay for their items at this particular spot. A second way you hear check out used is to mean to get information or kind of see if something is satisfactory. Is it in an okay condition? An example of this: we're going to check out the new restaurant this weekend, right? So here, like, we're looking to see, is this a good place to eat? We're going to check out is an example of the simple future using be going to. A third way you'll hear check out used is to mean to borrow a book from a library. Okay? An example of this: I check out 2 books each month. Here's an example of a simple present sentence where I'm talking about a habit or a routine. Let's continue looking at some more phrasal verbs. The next one is to check out of. You hear this commonly used in connection to hotels and motels, and this is when a guest is leaving that hotel or motel. An example of it might be, we'll check out of the hotel before 10 a.m. This is another simple future sentence, but here I'm using will. Okay? Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to check over. This means to review or examine something very carefully. An example of this: check over the contract before you sign it. This is an example of an imperative sentence, a command. I'm telling someone what to do. Okay? I want them to review it. Right? I want them to understand what it is they're signing and agreeing to. Another phrasal verb we might encounter is to check up on. This is used commonly to see if someone is okay, maybe to see if that person is doing what we expect them to be doing, what they should be doing. An example of this: I should check up on the kids to make sure their homework is done. Right? So maybe you've told your kids to do their homework, sent them off to their rooms to work on it. Now you're going to see, have they done what I've asked them to do? I should check up on is another example of a modal giving advice. My final example here is check with. This phrasal verb is used to ask for confirmation about something. An example of it might be, I'm going to check with my boss to see if I can have that day off. There's another simple future sentence using be going to, right? So if I said something like this, what I'm saying is my plan is to ask for confirmation, right? To get approval that I can have that particular day off from work. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb check. And the first thing we're going to discuss is really just the noun form of this word. So, exact same spelling, exact same pronunciation. When I use the noun check, I might be referring to an examination in order to see the accuracy, the quality, or the condition of something. So, an example of this might be, they performed a check on the electricity. So, maybe I had some maintenance workers in my apartment, right? Looking at kind of the quality or condition. Are things working okay in this space? Now, a second way you hear the noun check used is to refer to a written order to pay a bank a certain amount of money. And I've got a picture in the bottom of my the right corner of the screen here, showing you an example of a check. You might hear somebody say something like, I wrote a check to pay my bank. Right? So Maybe there's some additional fees, a particular service they've provided me. Um, we can see an example of what that looks like. Another related word you might encounter is the noun checker. So this could be a person who verifies or examines something. And I'm going to use this word as part of another compound word here. My example sentence is Microsoft Word has a spell checker. Right? If you use this program to write, you might notice red squiggly lines letting you know that something has been spelled incorrectly. So the computer program is verifying that we have the correct spelling. A second way the noun checker gets used is to refer to a cashier. This is most commonly used at supermarkets or grocery stores. An example of this: her first job was as a checker at the local grocery store. The last word we're going to look at today is the noun check out. You might hear this used to describe the time at which a guest needs to leave a hotel room. An example of this: checkout time is 11 a.m. Pretty common at a lot of hotels. And a second way you'll hear checkout used is to refer to that area of a store, generally where the cash registers are, many times where you see lines of people holding the things they want to buy. So this is the area where you're paying for those things, the goods. An example of this might be ask an employee at the checkout counter, right? So perhaps you have a question, maybe it's about the return policy, something like that. Another worker tells you, ask that person. They're going to know or have more information. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and I want to say another special thank you to my colleagues who let me know about the earlier problem with this video. I hope you all have a great day.